everyone, it's Jennifer from Fiberflux. In this video, I'm going to show you how to crochet the Emerald Isle Shawl. This is a gorgeous shawl with kind of like a nostalgic, kind of old-timey feeling. It has beautiful granny triangle motifs that we are going to use the join as you go technique. And I have this lovely green, and we have this like beigey kind of stone color that we've joined all of our motifs. We are going to add a lovely scallop edging and some tassels at the end. This is a large triangle shawl, although because we're doing the join as you go technique, you can make this as large or as small as you like. And we're going to go through this every step of the way. The finished shawl measures from the bottom point straight up the middle of the triangle, measures about 42 inches. And again, these are with the motifs that I made. You can do more or less. And then from the bottom point straight out the side to this upper right corner and straight out to the side to the upper left corner, each side of our triangle is about 49 inches. And then the top edge of our triangle, from the point all the way across where you would wrap it around like the neck, the top part, is about 48 inches, okay? So let's get started. For this project, you'll need a tapestry needle, a pair of scissors. We're going to be using a 6mm J crochet hook. This is my Furls Odyssey. I'll put the link down below in case you're wondering and want to get one of your own. You're also going to need a tape measure to get the sizing that you want as well. And then let's talk about this yarn over here. This yarn is called Vita Lana Ascendance. This is one of the Knit Crate in-house yarns. I'm going to be using 2 skeins of a colorway called Ancient Ruin. It's like a green, like a grass green almost. And it has some little variations in tone. And it's a really soft kind of squishy yarn. It's one of those like chainette yarns. It looks like an I-cord up close. And so 2 skeins of this, and then I have another color here that we'll be using for our join as you go part. We'll be connecting all of these triangles, the green triangles, with this color. This is called Broken Stones. It's the same yarn, 328 yards of that. So I have here 656 yards of the green, and I have 328 yards of this stone color. Now, if you need to substitute yarn, just sort of stick with those same yardage amounts. And this is a sport weight yarn. However, I do feel like this yarn is pretty fluffy and it works really nicely with the J hook. So some sport weight yarns have a smoother strand and are very finer. So you might want to experiment by making one of the motifs in the yarn of your choice with the hook size. And the thing that's neat about this pattern is we're just adding motifs. So you can really build it as large as you'd like it to be as well. So that might change your yardage too if you change the number of triangles or the sizing of your wrap as well. So let's get started. Okay, so we have our hook and our yarn, and I wanted to mention as a side note, if you're using skeins like me, I wound mine into a cake. So if you have a skein, you'll need to either wind it into a cake like I did or a ball. So what we need to do first is put a slip knot on our hook. We're going to make a very simple granny triangle. Wrap the yarn around your fingers to make a loop. Bring the yarn behind the loop, reach in with your hook, bring up a loop, and tighten. Next, we're going to create the ring that we will be working our stitches into. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you can see. And we're going to chain 4. So to make a chain, wrap the yarn around the hook and bring it through the loop. That's 1, 2, 3, and 4. Then what we're going to do is join to form a ring. So go in the chain farthest from the hook, that first chain you did, and we're going to work a slip stitch. Insert the hook into that chain, bring up a loop. Now bring that loop through the loop already on your hook, and now we have a ring that we'll be working our stitches into. Next, we're going to chain 6. This is how we're going to start round 1. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then we're going to work 3 double crochets into the center of this ring down here. So to make a double crochet, wrap yarn around hook, insert the hook into the ring that we made, bring up a loop, wrap yarn around hook, bring it through the first 2 loops, wrap yarn around hook, bring it through the last 2 loops. And I forgot to mention this before, but this tail here, if you want to save yourself a step, hold this tail along the edge of that ring as you work your stitches, and that will weave it in as you go along. Okay, So that was 1 double crochet, but we need to work 3. So let's make a second one and a third double crochet. Then we're going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3. And then in the center of the ring again, we're going to work 3 more double crochets. So 1 double crochet, 2 double crochet, pushing things over if you need to, and 3 double crochet. Sometimes it's good to push things aside a little bit so you have more space to work. Okay, so push that over, and then we're going to chain 3 once again. 1, 2, 3. And then in the center of the ring, we're going to work 2 double crochets this time. So 1 and 2. Okay, so that chain 6, remember that at the beginning of the round that we did? That counted, the first 3 of those chains counted as a double crochet. The other 3 counted as the chain 3 corner spaces that we're creating. So to finish this round, what you're going to do is count 1, 2, 3 chains up, insert the hook into that third chain up, and we're going to work a slip stitch to join the round. So bring up a loop, now bring that loop through the loop already on your hook. And what we have now is a little teeny tiny triangle. It looks more like a circle at this point, but it's going to shape up to be more triangular as we move along. Okay, so for round 2, if you want to switch colors, you can cut the yarn and then tie the new color into this chain 3 space. These are our chain 3 corner spaces at either point here. If you want to stick with the same color like I'm doing, all we need to do is to get our hook in the right spot. So we're just going to work a slip stitch into that chain 3 corner space. Insert the hook, bring up a loop, bring that loop through the loop already on the hook. Okay? So to begin round 2, what we're going to do is chain 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then in that same chain 3 space, we're going to work 3 double crochet. So 1, 2, and 3. Just like that, okay? Now we're going to hop over to the next chain 3 space, but we're going to put a chain 1 in between, okay? So we're going to chain 1, and then we're going to hop over to that chain 3 space there in the corner, and we're going to work 3 double crochet. 1, 2, and 3. Whoops, I missed the loop there. So 3 double crochet, and then we need to create another corner. See, we're at the peak of our triangle here. So we're going to do that by chaining 3. 1, 2, 3. That's going to create our corner spaces. And then in that same chain 3 space, we're going to work 3 more double crochet. 1, 2, and 3. Whoops, dropped my loops there. All right, so we have our corner spaces established. Then we're going to chain 1, and we're going to hop over to the next chain 3 space, our next point. And so right in that chain 3 space, we're going to work 3 double crochet. 1, 2, and 3. All right, so now we need to create another corner space. So we're going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3, and in that same space, work 3 more double crochets. 1, 2, and 3, all in that same chain 3 space, okay? So we're starting to get more of a triangular shape going on. And then we need to chain 1. And now we're at the last point here. So remember we did that chain 6 at the beginning of the round. Right at the base of that, there's our corner space that we need to work into. In this corner space, work 2 double crochets this time. 1 and 2. And then to join, we're going to remember that chain 6, 3 of those chains count as a double crochet and 3 of them count as our chain 3 corner space. So we're going to count 1, 2, 3 chains up, insert the hook into that third chain up, bring up a loop, bring that loop through the loop already on your hook, and we have our triangle, round 2 of our triangle complete. Okay, once again, we need to get our hook in the right spot. So we're going to work a slip stitch to get it into that chain 3 space. And then what we're going to do is chain 6 once again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Then in that same chain 3 space, we're going to work 3 double crochet once again. 1, 2, and 3. Now, this round is slightly different because now we have side spaces that we're going to be working into. So we have our corner spaces here of our triangle, but now we have some spaces on the side that we need to work into. And what we're going to do is we're going to chain 1, and then in that side space, we're going to work 3 double crochet. 1, 2, and 3. Okay? Chain 1, hop over to the corner space here of our triangle, and we're going to work 3 double crochet. 1, 2, and 3. And because it's a corner, we're going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3. And then in that same space, we're going to work 3 double crochet. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so that corner's done. Then we're going to chain 1, and now we're at a side space here, okay? So we're going to work 3 double crochet. 1, 2, and 3. Okay? Chain 1, then hop over to that next corner space. So we're going to go 3 double crochet. 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3, and then in that same corner space, work 3 double crochet. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so we have our next corner complete. Chain 1, and then to finish it up, we're going to go in that last corner space. See where we had that chain 6 at the beginning of the round? You can see that space right there. And right in that space, you're going to work 2 double crochet. This will seem familiar from the last 2 rounds we did. So 1 double crochet in that space, 2 double crochet in that space, and then count 3 chains up. 1, 2, 3. Join with a slip stitch to close the round, okay? Now, I am going to do 3 rounds here for my triangles. So I went ahead and made a bunch of triangles. Now, you don't need to make all the triangles for the entire shawl, but just if you have a handful of them, just a few to get you started, would be fine. And you can make them as you go and build your shawl accordingly. Now, if you prefer, you can do all the triangles first and then join them all together. But I like to make a few, so I have a little pile here. And what I like to do first is make sure when I stack them that they're all facing upward. And what I mean by that is the side that faced you while you worked, that's the right side. So you don't want to have the back showing. And so what I like to do is stack them with the right side facing up, just so I don't accidentally join one, flipped over, and then have to go back and rip it out, okay? So just make sure they're all facing the right way, because sometimes when you work up a bunch of these at once and kind of toss them into a basket or something, they get flipped over. So just make sure that you don't accidentally have one flipped over as you're joining them on, okay? So I have my little pile here, and I'm going to kind of set them aside and grab one of them. Now, before we start, what I'm going to do is just flip this over. Now, this is that piece of yarn that we wove in as we went along. So I'm just going to give that a little tug and give it a snip with my scissors. And then if you like, you can do all this at the end, but if you like, you can weave this end in as well before you get started. And that will keep things nice and neat. So now that I just said have the right side facing up, when you weave the end in, flip it over. And then we're going to just go into these And we're just going to go into these stitches along the back here. Okay, so just go in one direction with your tail, pull it through, and come back in the other direction. And then get that corner. Sometimes when you weave in an end, it'll pull that corner in. You just kind of reshape it a little bit if you need to, and then trim. Now what you could do is if you have a nice pile of them, go ahead and weave all your ends in, or just do one at a time as you go. It's really up to you. Okay, so if you notice I have my dark background because we're going to put this green yarn aside and grab our light color yarn, and I want you to be able to see it against the background. So what we need to do first is, with our little triangle, we're going to do the first one by just putting another round onto our triangle. And then as we add our second triangle, what we're going to do is put another round, but when we get to the part where they're going to touch, we're going to do the join as you go part. Okay, so we're going to walk through this whole thing together. Okay, so I have my yarn, and like I said, we're just going to put another round on this very first triangle. So actually, we're going to make our point face down as we build more triangles on, but you can pick any corner you like to do this first round. So insert your hook into any of these corner spaces, hook the new yarn on, and bring it through. Then we're just going to tie it right on. Okay, so then what you're going to do is insert the hook back into that same space. And you know what? Let me zoom in just a little bit more so you can see what I'm doing here. And there we go. Okay, so insert your hook back into that corner space, bring up a loop, and then we're going to start it like we've done every other round. You're going to chain 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then you're going to work 3 double crochets into that corner space. So 1, 2, and I'm just going to pull some yarn out of the middle here. There we go. And 3. Okay, then chain 1, and then we're going to go down and work the sides. Now this tail we can just kind of ignore for now. I did, as a side note, if you can see the back here, I did hold it along the edge as I worked, same way we did the center here, so that it is tucked in a little bit, okay? But I'm just going to kind of get it out of the way for now. Okay, so we did a chain 1, and now we're going to work down the side of our square. So again, that's 3 double crochet, 1, 2, 3 double crochets, and chain 1. Next space, 3 double crochet, 1, 2, 3, and chain 1. And now we're back at another corner here of our triangle. So in that corner space, go 3 double crochet, 1, 2, 3, and because it's a corner space, we're going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3, and then in that same space work 3 more double crochet. 1, 2, and 3. So you can see we're just doing the same thing. We do have an extra side to work because it's just growing, but we're just doing this as normal, but I'm still walking you through it so you can see. Okay, so again, we're going to work down the next side. So chain 1, go into the next space, 3 double crochet. 1, 2, 3, chain 1, get some more yarn here. Hop over to the next space, 3 double crochet, 1, 2, 3, and chain 1. All right, starting to make some progress here. Now we're at another corner space, so once again 3 double crochet, 1, 2, 3, and then because it's a corner space, we're going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3, and then in that same corner space, work 3 more double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, chain 1. Now we're going to go down that final side of our triangle here. In that first space, 3 double crochet. 1, 2, 3, chain 1. Next space, 3 double crochet. 1, 2, 3, chain 1, and now we're ready to kind of bring it together. So we have our corner space. Remember, this is where we started. So remember that chain 6. Again, those first 3 chains count as the double crochet. The other 3 chains count as that chain 3 space that creates that corner space. Okay, so in this corner space where we began, we're going to work 2 double crochets this time. 1 and 2, and then because this first 3 chains counts as our double crochet, count 1, 2, 3 chains up, join with a slip stitch, insert the hook into that chain, bring up a loop, bring that loop through the loop already on your hook, and our first triangle is complete. So what you want to do now is grab your scissors, cut the yarn, and then fasten off. So wrap the yarn around the hook and bring it through the loop, okay? So at this point, I like to sort of come in and sharpen up my corners, okay? And then what we're gonna do is put it aside for just a moment, and we're gonna grab our next triangle, okay? So once again, just give it a little treatment to the ends here. Cut the little center one, weave in the end. Again, this is a personal preference when you like to weave your ends in. I like to kind of do it as I go along. It makes the job at the end so much easier if I do it as I go along. But sometimes people just like to crochet and just not even worry about it to the end. It's totally up to you. All right, so I'm just gonna tuck that end in. The other reason I like to do it as I go along too is when I show you how to do this, there aren't a whole bunch of ends in the way to, so you can see what I'm doing here. Okay, so here is our triangle. And what we're gonna do is, this was our first one. So this is like the bottom point of our shawl, okay? Let me zoom out so you can see here. This is the bottom point of our shawl. So what we're gonna start doing is building up the triangle. So what we need to do, and I'm going to kind of lay it out for you just to give you an idea of what I'm talking about here. So this is the bottom point. We're going to put one here. So we're going to be connecting them here. And then we're just going to start adding. So we have, if you notice, this one points down, this one points up. So in order to keep that triangular shape going, we need to make this one point down. It's going to be kind of like a pattern. This one point down. And then we're starting to build the sides of our triangle. And then I only have a few triangles here. I gotta make some more. But if you notice, this one will point this way next. And this one will point this way. And then you'll have another one here. Like, this will stay here, obviously, but I just want to, for illustration purposes. And then see, so we have like down, up, and then we're going to get our side here, okay? So as we build higher and higher, we're going to keep adding triangles in this down, up pattern, okay? Now, to see this kind of all laid out for you in like a pictorial sense, hop on over to the Fiberflux blog for the post for this week's tutorial part of the cowl. And I have created kind of like a chart or like a visual so you can see the layout of all these triangles. I sort of like made a little graphic to illustrate how it's going to be laid out. Now, as a side note too, this also gives you an idea of how flexible this shawl can be. You can just do, if you think about these in rows, you can do as many of these rows and build on as many of these triangles as you want. You could really make this like a huge shawl if you want to, or you could just make it like a simple little wrap if you just want to do a few. Okay, so now that we sort of have our layout established here, let's move these triangles back over here. And what we're going to do is grab our join as you go yarn once again And I'm going to scoot this first triangle out of the way for a minute. And again, we're going to be joining them like this to start, okay? So what we want to do now is the same thing we've been doing. Pick a corner that you like, insert the hook into that corner space, and let me zoom back in once again so you can see everything up close. And we're going to hook the new yarn right on there, bring it through, and then just tie it right on. Okay? Then once again, this part will seem familiar because we've already done this. Insert the hook back into that corner space and then chain 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now, if you can help it, try to just do the first side without joining. It just keeps things a little bit simpler as you're getting started, okay? So when we do the second side, we'll make that our join side. Okay, so we did a chain 6, and then in that same corner space, we're going to work 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. Chain 1, hop to the next corner space. I'm going to let that tail go for a minute. Work 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. Chain 1. Hop to the next space. 3 double crochet. 1, 2, and 3. Chain 1. Okay, now I'm going to zoom out a tiny bit and grab our other triangle because we are going to start joining next, okay? So what we want to do is we did our chain 1, now we're going to go to the corner space and we're just going to work half of it and then join, okay? So in that corner space, work your 3 double crochet, the first 3, 1, 2, 3. But normally we do 3 chains here to create that space, but we have to do it a little bit differently because we're joining. So what we're going to do is chain 1, make our slip stitch join, and chain 1, okay? And I'm going to show you how to do that. Okay, so what we want to do is grab your triangle, and we're going to chain 1 with the current one we're working on, and then pick a corner here, okay? So here is our corner space, grab a corner space, and then what we're going to do is go into the corner space of the, actually let me zoom back in. We're going to go into the corner space of our other triangle. So insert your hook in through the top, scoop up that yarn, bring it up. You'll have 2 loops on your hook. Bring that loop through the loop already on your hook, like that, okay? So now they're technically joined. Okay, so now they're officially joined together, but remember we're doing the chain 1, slip stitch join, chain 1. So work another chain, and then what we can do is sort of scoot this out of the way for just a second, and then we're going to go back into the triangle we were working and work our remaining 3 double crochets to finish. So 1, 2, and 3, okay? Now we normally would do a chain 1 here, but because we want to join, kind of swivel this back, and we're going to slip stitch join into this space here. Okay, so here was our corner of our other triangle, and then in that space, that first space we would work it into, go in from the top, reach back, scoop up that yarn, and pick up a loop. Now bring that loop through the loop that's already on your hook, okay? Now go into the space you would normally work your 3 double crochets. So 1, 2, and 3. Grab a little bit more yarn here. And you can see we are achieving some nice joins here, okay? And we're going to look at everything when we're all finished, okay? So once you work your 3 double crochets, we're ready to join again. So holding these, this is a lot if you've never done this before, to kind of hold all at once, like hold your yarn and hold the 2 triangles. But if you want to work on a flat surface like this, that also helps. Okay, so we're at another space where we need to join. So go in from the top, reach back, scoop up that yarn and bring up a loop. Bring that loop through the loop already on your hook. Now go back to your triangle and work 3 double crochets in that next space. 1, 2, and 3. Just like that, okay? And you can see they're starting to mirror one another as we work, okay? So go into that next space of your triangle, reach in from the top, scoop up that yarn, bring the loop through the loop already on your hook, okay? Go back down to your triangle here, and if you notice, we're at another corner space of our triangle, okay? So what we're gonna do is now work 3 double crochets into that corner space, okay? So 1, 2, 3, and remember, we normally do a chain 3 here, but we're going to do chain 1, slip stitch join, chain 1, okay? So chain 1, now go back to this corner space up here, and we're going to do our slip stitch join. So going from the top, reach back, scoop up that yarn, bring up a loop, bring that loop through the loop already on your hook, and then remember, chain 1, okay? Now we still need to work our 3 double crochets into this corner space here. So work your 3 double crochets, 1, 2, and 3. So next we're just going to continue down the side as we normally would without any joins, okay? So the next space we're going to do 3 double crochet, okay, and then chain 1, and then we're going to go down this side as we normally would without any joins, okay? So in the next space, work your 3 double crochets, 1, 2, 3, chain 1, next space, 3 double crochet, 1, 2, 3, chain 1, and then we're back at the beginning. So we're just going to close up this round like we have been doing before. So in that corner space, work 2 double crochets this time, 1 and 2, and then count 3 chains up, 1, 2, 3, and join with a slip stitch to close the round, okay? Next, what we're going to do is cut the yarn, because we're done with this triangle. Wrap the yarn around the hook, bring it through the loop to fasten off. And then what I like to do is just give everything a nice shaping up. And we can kind of look at what we've done, okay? So we have our bottom point of our shawl, and you can kind of, but what we have now is some really pretty beginnings for our shawl. So what you're going to do next is continue along. Now when we do this triangle here and this triangle, it will be very similar to what we're doing. We're just joining on a side here, but as we get to these areas here, when we do these corners, you're actually going to be joining it onto 2 triangles this time. So I am going to walk you through the next triangle so I can show you how to join when you're joining 1 triangle onto 2. So far we've joined 1 onto 1, okay? But next we're going to join 1 onto 2 triangles, and I'm going to show you where to place your work for that as well. So let's go ahead and do the final scenario, if you will, for our joins. So I'm going to start back here with my yarn so that I can work a full side without joining. I just find that to be a little bit easier. So let's slide this aside for a second. And what we're going to do is, once again, let's trim and thread our tapestry needle and just get this end out of the way. It'll just make things a little bit easier. Okay, so just go in one direction, come back in the other direction with your tail, and we're going to snip. All right, so we have our little triangle. It's all set to go. So grab your yarn, and once again, we're going to just begin like we have been. Now we've done this a couple of times now, so I'm just going to kind of breeze through this part a little bit more. Tie the new yarn on. Get that tail situated so you can kind of weave it in as you go. Reinsert the hook back into the corner space and chain 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. In the same space, work 3 double crochets to begin. So 1, again, I'm just going to kind of cruise through this part a little quicker. 2, 3, and now I've sort of tucked that end in, so I'm going to get it out of the way, not worry about it right now. Chain 1, and we're going to go down that first side. So 3 double crochet, 1, 2, 3, chain 1, next space, 3 double crochet, 1, 2, 3, and chain 1. And now remember, we're going to work that first corner, just half of it before we join, okay? So 3 double crochet. Remember we did our chain 1 in between. 3 double crochet, 1, 2, and 3. Now let's grab our shawl, and we can sort of scoot these tails. Now these tails might be worth weaving in before you proceed, but I just wanted to show you real quick. Okay, so remember we're going to work the chain 1, slip stitch join, chain 1, okay? So let's do our chain 1 and then go to this point, because remember we're going to put it on the side here, okay? So go up to this point, go in from the top, reach back, whoops, go in from the top, reach back, scoop up that yarn and bring it through the loop that's already on your hook. Work a second chain 1, and then we're going to go back into that corner space and work our 3 double crochets. 1, 2, 3. Now instead of doing our chain 1, we're going to go into that side space of our triangle that we're joining. Go in from the top, reach back, scoop up that yarn, bring that loop through the loop already on your hook, and then work your next set of 3 double crochets on your triangle. Whoops. So 1, 2, 3. Okay, just like that. Now go back to your piece, go in from the top, reach back, scoop up that yarn, bring the loop through the loop on your hook, slip stitch join. Now go back to your triangle, work your 3 double crochet. 1, 2, and 3. Okay? Now go back to your shawl, go in from the top, reach back, scoop up that yarn, bring that loop through the loop already in your hook. And then we're at a corner now, okay? So if we look at our piece here, this is something else you may encounter while you're joining triangles. We're going to join it onto 2 triangles this time, okay? So come up here, and we're once again, same thing, we're going to work half of our corner, okay? So go back to your triangle, work 3 double crochet, 1, 2, and 3. Now, when you're joining onto 2 like this, we're not going to go into the corner space of this or the corner space of this triangle, because if we did that, it would throw it off center. Okay, it would look like give it like a crooked kind of sideways look. Okay, instead, when you're joining onto 2 triangles like this, if you look at your triangle sitting side by side, you have your corner, and in between them is a space. We're going to join in that space. So when you're joining one triangle into two, you're going to go in that space in between the triangles, not the corner spaces like we've been doing, okay? Now if you're doing one triangle to one triangle, you'll still do that, but when we're doing two, we're going to go in between to keep things even and lined up, okay? So remember you got to work a chain one and then go in between those triangles from the top, reach back, scoop up that yarn, work that slip stitch join, and then we're going to work another chain one. Working those chain ones in between keeps it from getting too tight. It'll pull it in because your triangles are used to having 3 chains in each corner, okay? Now, we're going to finish we did our chain one again. We're going to finish our corner. So go back to your triangle and work 3 double crochet. 1, 2, and 3. Whoops. Now we're going to just finish this side like we normally would because our triangles are joined now. And we're going to work 3 double crochet down this side where we did our, whoops, we didn't do it. We're going to chain 1 and then work 3 double crochet in that first space. 1, 2, 3. Chain 1, 1, 2, 3 in that next space, chain 1. Now we're at the beginning of where we began our triangle, and we're going to work 2 double crochets in that corner space, 1 and 2, and then count 3 chains up, 1, 2, 3, like we've been doing. Join with a slip stitch to close the round, okay? Now we can cut the yarn, fasten off, and let's look at what we've done here. Now you might need to kind of straighten things out. Sometimes when we do joins, they can pull in a little bit. Okay, so let's turn this thing around here. Now you might need to kind of pull those sides where they're joined. Sometimes they want to pull in a little bit. But we're starting to get a nice triangle shape. Now, if you notice, because we're joining lots of pieces here, you might have a little dip here. We're going to add a border around the entire large triangle, okay? So what that's going to do is when we work a border, it's going to make everything nice and straight. So you might get a little bit of dipping and things as we join these motifs, especially where you join 3 triangles together. It sort of wants to pull in sometimes, and that's okay. We're going to correct all that by putting a nice border around our entire shawl. So what you're going to do now, let me zoom back out, is we're going to put another triangle here. And that will be the second row, if you will, of our shawl, okay? We're starting to build upward. Then we're going to put one here, and then we're going to put one here, and then you're also going to have one over here to build that side up, okay? So keep adding your triangles, and we're going to rejoin in just a minute. I'm going to add some more triangles to mine, and we're going to rejoin, and I'm going to show you kind of the progress that we're making. One last scenario I wanted to share with you is so far we learned how to join one triangle onto one other triangle, and then we learned how to join one triangle onto 2 triangles. So there's joins where there's 2 and we're hooking 1 onto 2. You'll also run into a third and final scenario while you're building your shawl where you're going to join 1 triangle onto 3 triangles, okay? So for that one, now the name of the game is to just keep everything centered, okay? You don't want anything to be off center. So I've started working down the side of one of these triangles, and I'm going to come to this corner space. So we're going to do our 3 double crochets in that corner space to get it started. So 1, 2, 3 double crochets, and then remember chain 1, and then we're ready to join. So I'm going to join this triangle onto here where these other 3 are, okay? So we're going to join it right here. I'm going to connect here and have it laying here on top of this one, but this corner, there are 3 triangles already kind of hanging out over here, okay? So what we're going to do is join. When you have 3 of them, you want to join into the center of the centermost triangle, okay, remember to keep everything centered. So we're not going to go in this space or this space off to the side. We're going to go into the space that's in between the centermost triangle. So here's our 2 groups of double crochets, that centermost space, okay? So let me just zoom in a little bit so as we join you can see this in action here. Okay, so we did our chain 1 and we're ready to join. So grab your yarn and we're going to go that centermost triangle, in the center of the centermost triangle, that space right there, go in from the top, reach back, scoop up that yarn, bring up a loop. Now bring that loop through the loop that's already on your hook, okay? And then what we're going to do is kind of turn our work, because we're going to be joining it onto the top part here, okay? And we're going to turn things a bit so it's easier to get to. And then we're going to, once again, chain 1 and then work 3 double crochets into the corner space of the triangle, okay? So 1, whoops, 2, and 3, okay? Now instead of doing a chain 1, because we're joining onto this part here, we're going to go back to this triangle that we're joining it onto, go in from the top, reach back, scoop up that yarn to bring up a loop. Now bring that loop through the loop already on your hook. Now go to the next space and work 3 double crochet. 1, 2, and 3. We're ready to join again. Going from the top of that other triangle, reach back, scoop up that yarn, bring that loop through the loop already on your hook. Work your 3 double crochets in the next space of your triangle. 1, 2, 3. Go in from the top, reach back, scoop up that yarn, bring that loop through the loop already on your hook. And now we're at the corner again. So we have a corner to join onto also. And I want to point out to you too, I came to a tail. So at this point, if you need to, you can kind of hold that along the edge anytime you come across the tail. And that will help later. So work your 3 double crochets into that corner space. 1, 2, and I'm going to get a little bit more yarn here, and 3 double crochet. Now go back to your triangle that you're joining it onto, and remember we're going to chain 1 and then work our join. Go in from the top, scoop it up, and bring that loop through the loop already on your hook. We're going to do another chain, whoops, work another chain, turn your work as needed, and then work your 3 double crochets. Okay, 1, 2, and 3. So this part we've already done, but I just wanted to kind of walk you through that part too. Okay, one more thing that might be helpful as you're doing this is as you're working more and more triangles, and let me zoom out. As you're working more and more triangles, you might lose your spot. You might kind of lose where the bottom of your shawl is because you're adding all these shapes, and it looks, right now it doesn't really look like a triangle shawl. It just looks like this sort of complicated set of triangles all arranged together. So if you like, as you're working, you can take a removable stitch marker and just put it on the bottom point of your shawl. And that way you'll always know where the bottom of it is. So in case you take a break and put it away for a little bit, and you get back and you're like, what is going on here? You can always know where the bottom point of your shawl is going to be. So as you build, up, you'll know, okay? So you're going to keep working rows and adding more triangles on. And again, go back to the Fiberflex blog to see the chart of how they're all laid out. But as you can see, we're already starting to get a little pattern where you have one that points down and then one that points up. And it kind of like switches back and forth. So you got one pointing down, one pointing up, one pointing down. Okay, that's the first row. Then you're going to work one pointing down, one pointing up, one pointing down, and so forth. So check out that chart, and that will kind of help you as you go along as well. So we've been going along from the bottom here where our stitch marker is and building upward, upward, upward. And I wanted to show you something you may run into. You may not. It depends on how you place your squares and what direction you move. And but as you're coming around here, you may run into this sometimes where you're coming to, now look, I just joined this triangle onto this section of my wrap, okay? And now I'm coming around and I'm ready to do one last join, as you can see here, to join them together. However, I have a chain 6 that I'm trying to join it onto. So let me just back up here, because I worked those last 2 stitches. So see, I'm going to work in that last corner space. I'm going to work my 2 double crochets to finish off the triangle. 1 and 2. And now let me zoom way in so you can see here. Now I need to join, but I also need to close the round. So it's sort of awkward, but it's an easy fix. So what you want to do if you run into this is join in the 3rd chain up like we've been doing to close triangles. So join to close the round with a slip stitch, just like that. Okay, so then what you're going to do when you have this is just close the round first and then hop over here to this other triangle and do your slip stitch join like that. And then you can go ahead and cut the yarn and fasten off. It's a little bit different, but it's still possible to join them, okay? So we're just fastening off and then we're ready to join more triangles, okay? Okay, so all of our triangles are joined. So remember we started at the bottom here. We have our stitch marker still to indicate the bottom. And I worked all the way up until I had a row of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 triangles across the top edge. So it is a nice sized triangle shawl. I had just enough yarn from these triangles to have some tassels at each of the 3 points, and we'll get to that in just a little bit. So as you can see, when you do triangle motifs, they buckle up a little bit. So again, I think I mentioned this earlier in the video, you'll definitely want to block this piece, either by a steamer. You can buy a handheld steamer. If you have yarn that's delicate or synthetic, like acrylic yarn, you can hover, don't let it touch, but you can hover a steamy iron over the top of it. I am going to be wet blocking this, meaning I'm going to submerge mine in water with a wool wash because I have wool, and then I'm going to be pinning it back. Now, because blocking is so important in this particular project, I will put some links down below in this video on how to block things, okay? I have a couple of tutorials, both techniques that I mentioned, but I am going to be blocking mine pretty hard to just get everything nice and opened up. You can see the difference when I go like this versus over here, okay? The last thing we're going to do though before we block, because we want to add a border or an edge to this, we're going to grab our cream color yarn that we use to join all these triangles together, and we are going to add a nice, beautiful scalloped border to our piece. So what I want to do is take this stitch marker off because I'm going to be working around the edge and it's going to get in the way. Now, I wanted to show you, I'm going to kind of make this border work with the shape here. We have our triangle motifs, and as you can see, where we connect 2 or 3 motifs along here, you get a divot, and that happens a lot when you do join as you go projects. The triangles seem to kind of perform a little bit more dramatically in that regard, so you get a little bit more dipping and such. So we're going to be putting a little bit bigger of a scallop where all these joins are, okay? We're going to go through this together. So let's spin this around, and we're going to grab the same hook that we used before, the same J hook, and we're going to grab our yarn, and I'm just going to pull a little bit out here, and what we're going to do is we're going to tie it onto that bottommost corner. Okay, so the corner at the bottom where when you wear your shawl, the point that faces down, we're going to tie the new yarn right into that. Okay, so hook it around. I'm going to zoom in a little. Bring the new yarn through, and we're just going to tie it right into that corner space. Okay, we're going to be putting some really pretty scallops, some really nice dramatic big scallops on here. Okay, so I'm going to hold that tail along the edge as I work. And I know I mentioned this before, but when you do your motifs and join them all together all over here, try to weave in as many as you can as you go along so that you'll have less to weave in. It still will be some ends that you'll weave in. Okay, so reinsert your hook back into that space, bring up a loop, and then you're going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3. And then in this point, we're going to work 8 double crochets. So the chain 3 that we just did is going to count as a double crochet for this scallop only. So we're going to work 7 double crochets, and that will count as one of them. So a total of, it'll look like 8, but we're going to do 7 because this counts as one of them. Okay, so work 7 double crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Okay, so that'll be down at the point. Now hop over to the next space and work a slip stitch. So go into that space, work a slip stitch. I'm going to get a little bit more yarn here. Then we're going to hop over to the next space. We're going to work 8 double crochets this time. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Okay, so here's our progress. Then we're going to hop to the next space and work a slip stitch. Okay, now we're at the end of our triangle and we've come to sort of like an intersection here. And let me just zoom in a little bit more so you can see. What we're going to do is we're going to go in the middlemost space, which is right here, right in the middle, and we're going to work our 8 double crochets in there. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Okay, so check out our progress, getting some nice scallops. All right, we're going to hop over to the next space, work a slip stitch. Okay, so what you're going to do all the way around is we're going to work 8 double crochets, then a slip stitch, 8 double crochets, then a slip stitch, and we're going to do this all the way across. Okay, so keep going with your, just did a slip stitch, so my next space will be 8 double crochets. So let's do one more together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Whoops. Let's redo that one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then this would be 6, 7, and 8. Okay. Next space, slip stitch. Next space, remember where our intersection is with all these triangles? You're going to go right in that centermost space. Okay. So go all the way around your shawl and do 8 double crochet, slip stitch, 8 double crochet, slip stitch all the way around, including these points. You're just going to keep on going, okay? So when we rejoin, I'm going to show you how our edging looks, and then we're going to block it. Okay, we're just coming up to the end here, and I'm going to join with a slip stitch. I have my slip stitch marker here just to let me know where I began, but we're going to join with a slip stitch to close this round. So what you'll want to do now is cut the yarn and fasten off. Now when you did your scallops, let's look at these. They look really pretty. If you're finding that your scallops though are pulling a little bit and it's a little bit tight, now we did 8 double crochets per scallop. You can add a couple double crochets to each scallop if you're getting a little bit of tightness. Now also, we can take this off now. I mentioned before a couple times that blocking is really important with this project if you're able to. So we're going to go ahead and block it next. Now there's 2 schools of thought about weaving in ends. Some people like to weave their ends in first and then block it. Some people like to block it and then weave the ends in. It's really up to you. If you're finding that when you're blocking your ends are popping out, you kind of might need to do the ends later. You can try a section or something like that. I'm going to go ahead and weave my ends in. I threaded my tapestry needle, and because of it being lots of motifs, you're going to have quite a bit of ends to deal with, but you can save them for later, or you can go ahead and do them now. So I'm just going to weave that in one direction, come back in the other direction. There will be some ends like the one I just snipped that we wove in as we went along, and so that will just you can just snip that one, but some of them you might have to go ahead and weave in with the tapestry needle like I just did. So go ahead and take care of your ends if you want to do that first, and I'm going to get this on the blocking mat. Again, the tutorials for blocking, 2 different ways to do it, are down below, and you can use that to kind of guide you through the process if you're unfamiliar. Okay, so this beauty is off of the blocking mat. Again, I highly recommend it being blocked. It really kind of opened up the triangles and got our scallops nice and defined. Even if you need to do just a light steam over it, it definitely benefits from some blocking. So I'm going to try and kind of scoot this up, because if you choose, and it's totally up to you, but I love tassels on a shawl. You don't have to do this, but if you want to, I'm going to show you how. Now I made a few already, and what we're going to do is make one together. So I'm going to put one at the point and then one at either the other 2 points at the top. Okay, so let's scoot this over a bit. We're going to get our scissors and a yarn needle, and I am going to cut 2 pieces of yarn about 12 inches each for our tassel, and we're just going to set those aside for a minute. Now what we're going to do is take our yarn, and I'm going to wrap it 20 times around all 4 fingers. That'll give us a bundle about that thickness, and obviously this one isn't done yet. So let the yarn hang down the front of your hand, and you're just going to wrap it around your hand about 20 times, okay? If you want something fuller, give it some more wraps. If you want something a little looser and kind of thinner looking, then wrap it less times, okay? So let it hang down the front, and we're going to go 1. Every time it goes around your pointer finger, count it as a wrap. So that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. So you can just give that a little snip. This is all the green that I have left, so I just barely cut it close there. And what we're going to do now is grab one of the pieces of yarn. We can leave this on our hand for a sec. I'm going to grab the first piece of yarn that I cut. I'm just going to sort of feed it in this bundle, and as I do that, kind of slowly remove it from my hand, tie it at the top, tie it nice and tight. This is something you'll wear, so you want everything to be nice and secure, and then you can kind of smooth everything down. And in the upper, I would say upper quarter of your tassel, you're going to tie this part as well. Take your second strand and give that a tie as well. Okay, so in that upper 1/4 section, if you will. Okay, so tie that once, tie that twice, and then whenever you make a tassel, I always like to take a second and just sort of straighten things out. Get everything nice and smooth looking. Now, when you make a tassel and tie the middle part here, you will have one piece that always lays nice and flat, and then you'll have one that sort of sticks out the side. Let me zoom in so you can see that better. So I like to take my yarn needle and just thread that and come up under that band that we just made and just tuck that back down in there, okay? That way everything will lay nice and flat. Now, I made these ahead of time. I haven't snipped the bottoms of them yet, so we're going to do that now. So what you need to do is, I like to first cut the long pieces just so they're out of the way. It just makes it a little bit easier to work with. And then you want to go in the bottom and you want to cut all these loops out of the bottom, okay? So go in and just cut all these loops out of the bottom. And then what you can do is sort of comb it down with your hand and hold it nice and firm and just give it a nice clean cut straight across. And then you'll want to sort of lay this out of the way because you have 2 more to do, and we want them to sort of be all the same. Okay, so cut the excess. You're going to save these that you tied at the top just because we're going to use those to tie onto our shawl. Okay, so cut all those loops out of the bottom. Give it a little comb with your hands. And then what you're going to do is just give it a clean trim across the bottom. Okay? Now, this is slightly longer than this one, so if that happens, because I'm just eyeballing this, I'm not measuring it or anything, just give it another little trim, just to get them even. No big deal. Okay, let's do our last one. Trim the excess. Then trim the loops out of the bottom. All right, last one, cut it straight across. And now we're ready to add them to our shawl. So we're just going to do this one together here. Now, you can go use your tapestry needle or yarn needle and thread it. And I would take it in the very center of that scallop, wherever that might be for you, and just bring that one end through. And then we're just going to tie it right on. And I would put a couple of nice tight knots. This chainette yarn like this always makes really nice tight knots. All right, the last thing we need to do for our tassel is weave the ends. Now, if you travel up into the piece, this is cream, so it's not going to look right. You want to go back down into this tassel with your needle. You're going to just pull it through like that. Repeat for the other one. Just pull it through. Now I see you may notice that our tassel's a little bit distorted now because we pulled something through it. That's okay, we can fix it. Just give it a nice, sort of stretch it back out a little bit. And then we can trim the bottom flush to the rest of the tassel. And our tassel has been added and it looks absolutely gorgeous. I really love this shawl. And we'll just repeat for the other 2 tassels at the 2 top points. So that's all you have to do. I hope you enjoyed this pattern. I really enjoyed creating this shawl. I just love the look. So that is how you crochet the Emerald Isle Shawl. Thanks so much for watching, and be sure and click the subscribe button to get all the latest Fiber Flux video updates. Thanks again.